gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is Awesome Body here at the Riding the Mannion podcast, and let's get right into it. Sean Mannion was brought in by the Philadelphia Eagles and started working with quarterback Jalen Hurts just recently, and there have been reports saying that they have started to hit it off, or rather they've been hitting it off. And this comes as a good sign to Eagle fans, particularly those who are in blind support of Jalen Hurts. Now, me, I am indifferent in this case. I certainly do support the quarterback. However, I also don't care whether it's him, whether it's Tanner McKee, whether it's Cole Paxton, whomever it is throwing the football for the Philadelphia Eagles. I want the Eagles to win ball games. But they brought Sean Mannion in because this offense has been stagnant the past couple of years and just not entertaining to watch in any capacity. And if we know anything about this owner, Jeffrey Lurie, he wants a high volume passing attack. So an overhaul of the offense is underway to such a degree where I believe, and I still believe in my bones, that they are building towards a different era of Philadelphia Eagles football, building and rebuilding a different team, not for Jalen Hurts, not for Sirianni, but for Sean Mannion and the next heir apparent at quarterback, whether that be Tanner McKee or somebody else they decide to draft later down the line. Regardless of that, though, they do have a contingency here, and that is if Jalen Hurts decides, or Jalen Hurts and this offense picks its pace up and picks up its production, all of a sudden you can justify and say to yourself, you know what, we could ride this another few seasons. We can ride for this era of Sirianni and Jalen Hurts football for the next few years, other than, of course, the fact that they're trying to maybe potentially fire Nick Sirianni, but that's neither here nor there. That'll be a topic of discussion all season long. Point being here, though, is that they brought Sean Mannion in, and they are hitting it off with Jalen Hurts and himself. The question becomes, will this offense be elite this season? Will there be an uptick in the offense? Will there be an offensive eruption with Sean Mannion leading the helmet play calling, Sirianni at head coach, and Jalen Hurts at quarterback, with all the new weapons that they have decided to bring into the building, with the new offensive coordinator scheme, with the new offensive line coach, with Mekhi Lemon, with Eli Stowers, with all the acquisitions, Elijah Moore. I mean, all the acquisitions you could possibly make on offense, they have done for this quarterback and this offensive design. Will the offense erupt and be elite? That's the question that we are going to get to in just a few moments. But before we dive into all of that, let me introduce you to the show real quick. This right here is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Asif Body, and like you, I am a Birds fan who talks about the Birds, only the Birds, and nothing but the Philadelphia Eagles. Please do us a favor, help us grow this channel organically by shooting this video a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribing to the channel. Also, check us out on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a 5-star review, because in the end, it doesn't cost you a damn thing to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate your support on the opposite side of the camera and on the opposite side of the airwaves. I don't believe there's going to be an offensive eruption in Philadelphia. I don't really think that this is going to be a year where you look at this offensive team and you look at this Philadelphia Eagles football team and it's going to be led by the offense. I don't believe you're going to be seeing a 4,000-yard passing year from Jalen Hurts. I don't believe you're going to be seeing this high-volume passing attack. However, what I will say is we should expect, as a fan base, an offense that makes sense. Or rather, a less risk-averse offense. Now, when I say it makes sense, I should say, maybe I should clarify my comments, because quite frankly, I am not so much of a big proponent in the need for the change in offense. I sure as hell was complaining about the offense last season, no doubt about it, because it was like it was running through mud. It was stagnant, it was stale, and it was very predictable. But you know what? That's because our quarterback and head coach combo are the same way. And you know what? If it leads to wins, does it really matter to me? In the grand scheme of things, I don't think so. I don't think you have to do this big overhaul change in the offense. I don't believe you have to sit there and revamp the entire offensive scheme just because it's not fun to watch. In the NFL, it's a results oriented business. And the results of the Philadelphia Eagles, regardless of who you believe is the catalyst for that, whether you believe it's the head coach, whether you believe it's the quarterback, whether you believe it's Saquon Barkley, the offensive line, the defense, or the general manager, whomever you believe is the catalyst. The point being is that this football team has been successful in the rendition or in the era of the Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts time frame. In the end, as a fan, to me, that is what matters. Not necessarily whether or not our quarterback gets along with this new offensive coordinator, who was also in the same position as Kevin Patullo last season, in which he has not called a play. Yes, he's worked with Sean McVay and, Kevin O'Connell and all the other guys who are of the Shanahan tree. Yes, he was a former quarterback in the NFL, which I believe will help in the transition from play caller to, from a player to coach to offensive play caller for Jalen Hurts. It's also why they brought in Andy Dalton in the building, which I also believe will be helpful to whether it's Jalen Hurts or Tanner McKee. Sean Mannion being brought into the building was designed to revamp the offense. However, he has never called a play on the NFL level. Just hasn't. Now, when he first was hired, I believe he was brought in on its face to revamp this offense. However, I don't necessarily believe that. I think he was brought in for one of two things. One being, hey, we need to really fix the quarterback room and really make sure these guys are polished, particularly Jalen Hurts and his mechanics, and making him more efficient on the drop back and getting the ball out of his hands quickly. That is something that I believe Sean Mannion, at the very, very least, at the absolute worst, will make Jalen Hurts better at. His footwork and the timing of his release, because those are two big components into why this offense is stagnant. Go look at film. Go watch the clips. Go watch highlights from Jalen Hurts in 2022 when he had the big come out season, when we went to the Super Bowl the first time with A.J. Brown and that rendition of the Eagles with Miles Sanders and all them. Watch Jalen Hurts play, and you see a decisive, a convicted, and a polished passer. Footwork was on point, knew exactly where he wanted to go with the ball. And yes, it was an RPO style offense, but even then, his ability to decipher and make decisions quickly made that offense hum. And it led to him playing in the Super Bowl, probably the greatest game of his career. Then you go to 23 with Brian Johnson. The footwork regressed. The turnovers went up. The decision-making was poor. While he threw for more yards than any time of his career, the offense once again was stagnant. Kellen Moore comes into the building, and yes, we had an incredible rushing attack, the greatest in NFL history, led by Saquon and this offensive line. Jalen Hurts, however, I felt was more decisive with the ball, was smarter with the ball, was a little bit cleaner in his footwork, albeit not so great, and got the ball out of his hands relatively on time when they decided to throw the ball. And then just this past season under Kevin Patullo, which again, I did not think he was so great, but he did lead Jalen Hurts to throwing a career high in touchdowns. The same amount as Bo Nix, Josh Allen, and Sam Darnold, who won the damn Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks. He did throw for 3,200 yards, albeit not a great clip per game. He averaged at about 200 yards a game and only 6 interceptions. And individually was the 16th ranked passer in terms of yardage. And I know team stat wise, this Philadelphia Eagles offense was close to the bottom 10th of the league. Can Sean Mannion improve that? Quite frankly, if Sean Mannion made Jalen Hurts a passer that threw for, $3,000, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions at a 65% completion percentage, but the offense felt more efficient, the running game was a little bit more effective, and we win about 10 to 11 ball games, don't you think Eagle fans would accept that? That's exactly what Kevin Patullo gave us last season. Now, the running game wasn't so efficient, and that was mainly the reason why this offense was so stale and stagnant. Can Sean Mannion come in and bring in a change to the run game? Potentially. That's again, I know that was a little bit long-winded, but that was the first thing as to what came to my mind with the Sean Mannion hire. Here's the second one, and this is the thing that I believe is really what the Sean Mannion hire was meant to be. It was meant to be the replacement for Nick Sirianni when, in my prediction, I believe we are not going to win more than 9 to 10 ball games. Be a wild card team, and depending on how elite the defense is, because this defense will be elite, we are going to see whether or not Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni are up to snuff with the new offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion. Because if Sean Mannion is bad, a rising star in the NFL coaching circles, it's going to spell trouble for not only Nick Sirianni, but for Jalen Hurts. This offseason has been a diabolical tirade on Jalen Hurts and his ability to be coached. In my opinion, it is led by the front office and this organization because they feel that Jalen Hurts is not an effective passer. And you see it by the play calling, you see it by offensive design. And I believe Nick Sirianni, while, again, is a really damn good coach, he also is not an effective play caller. So I don't believe he puts Jalen Hurts in the best positions at times to win ball games. So what have they done? They have built an offense that limits the turnovers, that limits throws over the middle, and throws it to their best playmakers on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside. Not a lot of motion. You kept it simple because you have an elite defense and elite offensive line a majority of the time that these two have been together. And you leaned on the running game because, as any offensive coach would do, you lean on your best unit. And your best unit over the past 5 to 6 years outside of last year was this offensive line. This is going to be the first season where I believe they're going to try to have Jalen Hurts in this passing attack, at least for the first month of the season, try to be the catalyst for their offense. Will it work out? I'm leaning towards no, because I think while you're going to have effective numbers in the passing game, you're not going to nearly win at the clip that you were when you were leaning on the run game and the defense. It's going to revert back to them leaning more on the running game, which is fine, by the way. I don't believe this is a bad thing or an indictment on Sirianni or Jalen Hurts. I am just saying what wins in the National Football League is not necessarily an absolute offensive eruption that Eagle fans are dying to see. What wins in the National Football League is what has won Philadelphia games these past 5 seasons. Really good defense, not turning the ball over, and running the damn football. Those are the 3 things that you must do in the National Football League at a high or an effective clip to win ball games. Last season, we were not running the ball at an effective clip. We were behind the sticks on third down. We were always in third and long. That is problematic for an offense, particularly a quarterback led by Jalen Hurts, who, again, while he has an elite resume, and I have argued on this show for him to be a top 5 guy based solely on resume, I understand his skill set is not necessarily, quote unquote, a top talent in the league. No one is going to be arguing that he's a top talent in the league. What they're arguing is the elite results that he had. And whether or not you believe he's the catalyst for that or not, that's not the discussion we're having here today. The discussion here is whether or not the offensive eruption that people are anticipating that the Eagles have tried to build by getting rid of A.J. Brown, who was problematic in the locker room, that's going to happen after June. And I believe he's an elite player. I still believe he's a top 3 wide receiver in all of football. But you're going to get rid of A.J. Brown to clear the air in the locker room. You brought in Mekhi Lemon as a first-round draft pick. You brought in Eli Stowers as your second-round draft pick, who won the Mackey Award in college, elite tight end award. You brought in Elijah Moore as a contingency if you do decide to keep A.J. Brown, because they have been friends throughout their whole careers. You have Devontae. You're bringing back Johnny Wilson, who's coming off of injury. Darius Cooper's there. You brought in Hollywood Brown. You brought in Dontavian Wicks. You brought in a whole plethora of guys on offense to try to make this thing work. Is the offensive eruption worth the squeeze? I don't know. Again, elite offenses have not won in this league in a very long time. What wins in this league is an elite defense, an effective running game, and not turning the ball over. Look at the playoff run that the Seattle Seahawks had. Sam Darnold was efficient. Yes, he had really great outputs, particularly against the Rams. He was electric in that game. But really, they had an elite defense, an effective running game, and a timely passing attack that didn't turn the ball over. Look at what the Eagles did the year before. An elite defense, one of the greatest running games we've ever seen, and a passing attack, at least in the NFC title game and in the Super Bowl when called upon, was effective enough to get the job done. And they didn't turn the ball over throughout the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs have been on a run, a dynastic run, with an elite defense, not turning the ball over in big spots, and an effective running game. And when I mean effective running game, I don't mean an elite running game. I mean, if you need 3 yards, you get 4. If you need 4 yards, you get 5. If you need 6 yards, you get 7. Being on schedule with the running game is one of the more important things in the NFL. Any offense will tell you that. It doesn't matter where you rank in passing yards. Hell, I just said Jalen Hurts earlier in this episode was 16th in terms of passing yards individually. Josh Allen was ranked 11th. I mean, Lord Almighty, let's just share screen and pull up the passing leaders in the NFL. Okay, let's look at yardage here. Jalen Hurts, like I said, was ranked 16th in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, a better passer than him, threw for basically 100 more yards than him. Jordan Love, 200 yards more than him. Josh Allen, like I said, was ranked 11th. Baker Mayfield, ranked 10th. Herbert, ranked 9th. And again, we're talking about how many yards difference? Jalen Hurts threw for 201. The rest of these guys, 215, 217, 230, 232. Trevor Lawrence, 236. Sam Darnold threw for 238 a game. I mean, we are stressing as a fan base over at most 30 yards, 30, 40 yards a game. In the grand scheme of things, is that really something to fret over? Is that really something to say, hey, you know what? We need to revamp the whole offense for? I don't think so. But hey, they're hitting it off. And we don't know what Sean Mannion is going to be as a play caller. We don't know how effective he'll be in calling plays and designing the scheme and sequencing plays. What I do know is this. This is a make or break year for not only Jalen Hurts and Sirianni, but you know what? It's a make or break season for the rest of these guys on offense. Because at this point, how many seasons are we going to sit here and say the talent on this football team is so immense that they constantly underperform and we don't know why? Maybe it's the quarterback and his limitations as a passer, albeit I really think they're overrated. Maybe it's the head coach, who, again, I have my disagreements with Sirianni, but damn it, he's a damn good coach and has brought us to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. And in both of those games, had his team prepared to play. The GM's not at fault. I think he's constructed a really good roster over the years. Maybe, just maybe, the talent on this team, particularly on the offensive side, has been slightly overrated. Is that a conversation that needs to be had? Is that a conversation that needs to be explored a little bit more? I don't know, but that's what this season is going to answer. This 2026 NFL season for the Philadelphia Eagles is set up to be a make or break year, not just for the head coach, not just for the quarterback, but for the rest of the players on the offensive side of the ball. The new era of Philadelphia Eagles football is contingent on this season. I believe this year's a rebuild. Based on what they do this season, the front office will decide whether or not it's time to shift in towards the rebuild moment, or is it time to just settle down and really ride out and squeeze the juice for what's left on this roster. That's what the 2026 season is meant to be. And the fact that these two guys, Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts, are hitting it off after a constant berating of hit pieces on Jalen Hurts, to me, it really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean much to me. What's going to matter more to me is exactly how Sean Mannion, Nick Sirianni, and this offensive coaching staff decide to coach this quarterback. Can they give him cleaner answers to the test? That's yet to be seen. But this is a very damn important year for Jalen Hurts and this offense. And in that note, that's probably the one thing I am excited for. I am curious to see the direction that this team is going to go in. Whether or not it's going to translate to wins, I don't know. But hey, that's why I'm riding the bench, isn't it? On that note, everybody, we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want to continue to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Riding the Bench Eagles Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us next time here at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.